Everybody, I hope you can hear me. It's Marcia, Rabbi Marcia, and I'm so sorry I opened this room late. I was finishing some last minute Passover shopping. Please forgive me. I'm glad you're all here, and I apologize for the delay. And I hope everybody is gearing up for a wonderful holiday and welcome. And I want to make Rabbi Lazar co-host, and we will get this show on the road.
Hey, welcome everyone. Thanks for being here. Hag. Lots of good stuff today. Very different than what we've done until now. By mistake, the same text sheet was sent out with our thing tomorrow. Hope you didn't print it again. Or print it the first time. We're not doing it. Hold on just a second. Okay, house is a little busy with grandchildren and stuff. What we want to do today, what I'd like to do today is to share with you, those of you who have not been with me before in one of these kinds of workshops where I take pieces, images from the Gross family collection, and I go with them someplace else. I'm not an art historian. I'm not a historian of any way. I know a little bit about text, but I know about rabbinics and how we use sources, traditional ancient sources, to connect ourselves to the past, yet make something new, give some new meaning to it. Usually we talk about sources in the literary. Here the sources are visual and okay, are visual, and so I'm going to put us up on the screen.
The washing machine is almost done. Do you want me to just turn it off?
No. Okay. All right. And you know what? Because we lost too much time before, and I'm just going to tell you verbally what I had thought to start with. There's an icon from the Eastern Orthodox tradition, Syriac Church, that you find in a number of places, and has Jesus coming up from the pit. And you can tell it's very, very, very colorful. Perhaps I probably showed this when I did the interfaith workshop that I did with you last year, and it shows Jesus with a man and a woman holding their hands, moving upwards with them, and everybody thinks that's Mary and Joseph. It's not actually an Adam and Eve, and the idea of that icon, which expresses it in a whole iconic tradition, is that with Pesach, which became Easter, with Jesus's rising from the grave, resurrection, Jesus is redeeming the human race, And if I want to be reductionist, I'm going to say, to me, that's fixing the world. That's one version of fixing the world. It's not my version. It's not the one that I subscribe to, that I believe in, but it's certainly meaningful for billions of people around the world. And so I think it's good for us to just to mention that as we move now from what went into Christianity back to Judaism of the last few hundred years, as is found in Haggadot. Yeah, I think only Haggadot we're going to use today. Okay, so let me just. Okay. Apparently. There we go. All right. Hopefully you can see it. Yes? All right. And are people able to use their voices?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, great. So, because once again, I don't see everybody on screen, so perhaps stop and ask questions. Just three different examples. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to introduce a number of Haggadot that I work with. Bill has dozens of Haggadot in the collection. Some of them have no illustrations, and some of them are what we could easily call derivative, because they're basically copying illustrations from previous ones, sometimes almost exactly, sometimes or kind of a more freestyle kind of copying. But there are different styles and different kind of ideologies in the art as well. So let's take a look at the first thing that the first one I want to present here is a very famous Haggadah, Haggadah 1695. It's found in a number of libraries. It's still very rare, but it's very famous. It's been written about a lot. And this is kind of an archetypical Haggadah for many Haggadot as far as the art is concerned. On the right-hand side, you have what is typical of a Jewish book, of a Hebrew book, Yiddish also, but the Jewish tradition of with a title page. Who do we see here? What figures are easily discernible? Anybody?
Moses.
And how do you know it's Moses?
Looks like he's either carrying an accordion or the tablets.
He looks like, you were about to say, he looks like Moses. We know what Moses looks like.
Tablets, yes, I see the
Right,
tablets.
so it's a small version of the tablets that we're used to. What else does he have in his hand?
I guess a sword.
It's his
A
rod,
rat.
his staff.
Oh, the staff.
Scepter.
He wouldn't
Staff,
carry a
okay.
sword, of course.
And one more thing that gives is a giveaway that he's Moses.
His beard, but they all have beards then.
Yeah, that would mean I'd be Moses. Look above his head.
Oh, he's.
the rays.
Right, the rays of light that became in Michelangelo the horns. And you've probably done that before. The same word, rays and horns. Who's on the left-hand side?
Aaron?
Yeah, and how do you know it's Aaron, aside from the fact that he's Moses' brother?
Because he's carrying
The Urim and Tumim, I think.
No, what he's carrying is a censer. That is an incense burner. The Urim and Tumim are on his breast, part of the breastplate.
right.
Got his turban. Got a kind of a silly look on his face, but anyway. And then the title page, this is the Haggadah Shel Pesach, and you find here some information and about the artwork as well. The relevant is here on the left-hand side. It's printed by Asher Anshel Ben Eliezer and partners. The illustrations by a fellow named Avraham Bar Yaakov. You also have the year of when it was, but it's not. It doesn't say like Tafshin Nun Hey. It says it has the year. One of the lines there has dots above the letters. When you have dots above the letters, you're supposed to add them up, and you'll get the year that it was printed in from the Jewish calendar. But then you've got these circles at the top, right? These panels at the top, and there we go. So let's take a look at the one on the right first. What are we looking at?
Tower of Pisa.
Yeah, that's what a lot of people say. But if it's not the Tower of Pisa in the Bible, it's the Tower of.
I think it's either the Tower of Babel or
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's the Tower of Babel, and that's an interesting thing in itself. I would love to have the time, the ability to go through all the illustrations of how that. I love the fact that that we have so many interpretations in illustrations from hundreds of years ago. Of course, we don't always know who the illustrator is. Is the illustrator someone who has learned Torah and Midrash and is expressing it in his art? And I think it's all them. I'm going to speak in male language because I think that's historically the case. Or is it someone who is copied from another book, or is it a non-Jewish artist? We don't always know. In this case, we know it's a Jewish artist by his name. But there's a story being told here. And the story of the Tower of Babel is a difficult story to tell. On one hand, you've got these people that are all speaking one tongue. How wonderful. If we could only speak to each other and hear each other and understand each other, right? But they're using that unity or that uniformity to build something which is, from a theological point of view, unhealthy. And then the story is troubling because God comes down, and what? We believe in a God that needs to come down. We believe in a God who is threatened by a tower. The whole thing is a primitive tale which has been incorporated in our book of Genesis, but it's a wonderful story to tell, but it's a complicated story to tell. And if the topic was this, we'd go greater into distance of it. Exactly what's happening there. It looks like they're building bricks, but that's for another time. Let's go over here. Anybody? I know you don't have a zoom in any of these. Can anybody see any of these on the left-hand side?
Yes,
Yeah.
So Adam and Eve, Adam v'Chava.
right.
Oh, I see the Garden of Eden, yeah, the tower. Oh, that's good.
Oh,
Thank you.
that's good, yeah.
Somebody's sleeping. I can't see that one.
Yaakov and Beit El. Looks like Noah, Dor HaMabul over here. Okay, we're gonna go. We're gonna focus on other stories, but the idea was to go back to the title page here. Haggadah is a book of storytelling. There's different ways to tell the story, and it was never ever meant to be a script to be read the way that we do it today, that many people do it today. And I want to encourage you to get away from the script part of it, especially when there are long sections about the multiplications of how many plagues there were, for instance. I'm not sure that's really a good way to spend, but that's my own view. You're going to get a lot of my own view. That's Haggadah Shel Amsterdam, Haggadah Amsterdam. This one's from Basel, 1816. The art is slightly different. You can see you'll see the style, and the style is a little bit more, it feels like it's a little bit more influenced by other sources. What are we looking at in the picture here?
Shepherd, and he's like watching his flock.
Any particular shepherd? How about Moses and his sheep?
Moses. Yeah,
This is an interpretation of the burning bush,
I was just going to say that.
right? And therefore the sun and the rays of sun are kind of godlike. It's a little bit pagan-like. But anyway, the information of the publisher and the editor here, the Jewish publication, Jewish editor, we don't know about the artist. Here's a close-up. And
Oh,
I want to talk about this, where the first Haggadah, just to introduce it, the title page already gives us a sense of the messiness of storytelling. The second Haggadah from Basel, to me, Moses, you remember, the one whose name is not mentioned in the Haggadah, ironic, right? That he's in the title picture. And when I look at this picture, I look at his face. I look at his body language. I look at the staff down. I look how he's taken off his sandal, as was told when he realizes it's a holy space. That to me, this is a model of leadership with kindness, humility, and amazement, radical amazement. That's the Haggadah of Basel. Now here's one. This one is I'm wondering if somebody has written on this. I haven't really delved into it. Again, it's not this is not my academic expertise at all, but I'm wondering and would guess that somebody has written an article on this Haggadah of Trieste, if not even something greater. This is just a really interesting Haggadah in many ways. A different kind of art form, different way of doing art. The captions are it's in Italian, and so it has Hebrew, but it has Italian as well. And we know exactly who published it. Unlike some things where sometimes we don't really know, but what do you see when you look at this title page? What's the overall feeling you're getting? Anybody, go ahead.
it's kingly. It's not the right word, but they're all wearing crowns that I don't know if they're crowns, but
Well, we'll look at them
They're
up
all-
close in a second.
No,
And
but
a
most
little later we'll see them up close.
crown.
But it does
What?
look very noble. Does it look very Jewish?
no.
Not necessarily, but may I just say something in here? More Porgo and 1864 we're talking about in the midst of the Jewish Enlightenment, and the more Porgos are very not just enlightened, well-educated Jewish people who are educated in both in all traditions, including our tradition. And Rachel Morpurgo was a very famous, well, not so famous, but for us women, was a very famous um, poet, writer, and translator. She wrote in Hebrew, but they were very secular as well.
Great. Well, thank you. That makes a lot of sense. I didn't know that. That makes a lot of sense given the style of this Haggadah. What it says under, it says Haggadah Shel Pesach with illustrations, and underneath a translation into Italian. And then the information that Sylvia just gave us.
Oh, but I have a question. Did Sylvia say that she was not Jewish?
She is
The
Jewish.
the artist. She is Jewish.
She was Jewish. This
Yeah.
is a
The,
very
the
famous.
artist.
Yeah, the artist and
I
the
don't think we
the
have
writers.
the name of the artist here. The name of the artist is not Morpurgo. The name of the artist is Kirschmeyer.
No, the authors of the or
Oh, the
the
authors. Okay.
I would say probably the editor, because I don't think there's any commentary in this Haggadah. So I'm guessing the editor or the publisher probably. No, it's published Colombo Cohen. So I don't know. But in any case, these are Jewish people.
Okay, but
go ahead.
can we get back to the point that looks so? It looks like somebody who was not Jewish did the cover.
Okay, so that's always going to be our question. Is it a non-Jewish artist, or is it a Jew who is imitating a non-Jewish style? But one thing is clear, it doesn't feel traditionally Jewish.
Right.
And here's a close-up of the face himself. Let's start from left to right. Who's on the left?
Moses.
Right, same thing, a different kind of version of the light shining from his head, but he's got a staff, smaller staff, tablets maybe more recognizable. And then comes Aaron with his telltale censer. And you can't see his Urim V'Tumim as much here, but a special hat. Then who's the third from the left?
David.
How do you know it's David?
He's got a harp.
There you go. That's a good giveaway. He's also wearing royal clothing.
Ah.
Right, the crown and
Crown.
Yeah. And who do you think it is on the right? So it's usually when you have David, the next king over is Solomon. That's usually the case. In this case, there's nothing other than a scepter to let us know that. And the fact that he's younger than David, messaging us that he's possibly the son. But when I look at these, I'm thinking of historical figures as role models, and what do we do with them, and how do we think about complex characters, and do we erase them or not erase them? When I first began working on this material, it was very much in the issue of the statues being brought down around this country for people that certain others wanted to erase. I think that's what it is, but I'm not being judgmental. But how do we think in general of historical figures as role models? This goes on now to great rabbis today who people have accused of wrongdoing. Moses was no picnic, and none of these guys were picnics. And David was the worst. David was the absolute worst from a human, from a behavioral point of view. Anyway, this is all part of the story. We go to a totally different kind of Haggadah from 20th century, from Offenbach, and very minimalist, reflecting the style of the time, and where I can't tell you what those signs are on the cuff. What's being held in the hand?
I was thinking it was the walls of Jerusalem, but I don't know.
How about a spice box?
There you go. Much better.
Right. And if
Spice
we want
box.
to someday, I have a whole lecture about the spice boxes in the Gross Family Collection. I have another one about the Kiddush cups. But now again, I don't know what that sign is on the cuff. I don't think Bill knew either. Yeah, I don't. Maybe it has to do with Offenbach. Any case, so for me, I'm introducing 4 different Haggadot. The first one was about the complexity of storytelling. That's the symbol of that Haggadah for me. Second one talks about role models. And was it this one talks about the power of ritual. I left one out, I think, but the Basel one has to do with leadership qualities. So let's get into it now. The Haggadah is about Jewish education. The Seder is about Jewish education. My guess is you've probably seen the illustration on the right before from Amsterdam, 1695. Maybe because it's a bit of a bazaar. You can tell different characters were placed on the same page coming from different, sketchbooks or something. They don't really come together, do they? Especially the Rasha. So it says under the right one, Chacham. He's dressed like Maimonides, with the gowns and the turban and beard, and he's got his hand out in a very pedagogical body language. The Rasha is a soldier with his spear in his hand, and you can see he's in motion. He's running. He's got a magain, a shield on his arm. The simple one is a kind of a farmer or a shepherd with his staff. And then from a totally different, picture book, they're all from different picture books, is the one who doesn't know how to ask, who's just a miniature person. And so you've seen these often because the other Haggadot sometimes show this to compare, and you may have been at a seder before where somebody will give different pictures, will hand out different pictures of the four sons or 4 children, and people will explain it differently. But it's about how do you apply your storytelling skills as a parent or a leader of the Seder to each of these 4 types. So just take, jump in time a few hundred years, and you get this very early 20th century, a different view of it, right? A far more intellectual view of the different, the smart son, the good son, the wise son is wearing white because he's dressed for the holiday, but he's dressed almost in a Zionist kind of a fashion. You feel like not necessarily the German style of dressing up, going to shul in the 1920s in Germany. The little kid playing with the toys, the body language of the one on the right, the Rasha, he's holding his hand out. No, not so much. I'm not so fast. And the one on the left, seemingly open. So this evening is about education. And my point in talking to you today is to show that the Seder is an opportunity to educate about different values that have to do with social justice. And the opportunities are not just in the words, they're in the images of Haggadot. And even if you don't have that image in front of you at your own Seder, I'd like to think that something in the pictures today will spark something in you. Now, I know we're on the backdrop. A friend of mine quipped the other day that could there be any more supplements and additions to Haggadot than there are already? Every single organization has offered one. I saw that Rabbi Marsha put out a thing with links. All that stuff is great. All of it's good. And a lot of it has to do with what's happening in Israel. But there's some things for me are a little bit more universal, and I'm being more universal. This is things that I think can affect anywhere. Sandra, you want to read for us, or you just took a bite of something? Sorry. Let's see who else.
Where would you like me to start?
Go from the top of on the Wicked Child. It's something that my teacher Arthur Green wrote a few years ago about
The wicked child?
Yes.
Had he been there back in, make it so I can see the whole sentence. Sorry. Had he been there back in Egypt, he would not be redeemed. Ouch. What an awful punishment for a kid who frames his question the wrong way. Can we imagine either God or Moses being so vindictive as to leave him behind alone in Egypt after all the host of Adonai went forth? The only way to understand would not have been redeemed, in quotes, is to turn the responsibility back toward him. This wicked son would have refused to leave Egypt when he had the chance. Sadly, this is the figure all too familiar from Jewish history, the Jew who did not leave in time. But what about us? If Mitzrayim, literally the straits of Egypt, refer to anything that enslaves you or constricts your spirit, as the Hasidic masters tell us over and over again, Are we too in that group of Jews who refuse to leave? What is it that enslaves us? And why do we fear to break the chains? Are we ready to leave our particular forms of Egypt, or are we among those who will choose to stay behind? Those are the tough questions that a true celebration of matzah forces us to confront. It's not just matzah balls.
Art Green is just a moment, Rabbi Marsha. Art Green is a friend and a teacher of mine, and has challenged me in many ways to constantly look for a better way of doing my own Judaism, my own rabbinate work, my own congregational work. I don't know that anything is particularly new here today. There's different issues that are brought up, but the idea is not to be stuck. Pesach has the tendency to have people be stuck. They're stuck in their cooking, their melodies, the way they do it, the guests that they have at the table. I ran into some horrible things in horrible, maybe it's a strong word, in my congregational life, looking for people, a place at the table for people that had no seder to go to, and people telling me, no, they always have they always have the same guests it's stuck. You have to have this food. If you don't have that food, it's wrong. I think we've all run into that. And it's not just with Jews, it's not just with the Seder, it's with life. It's Thanksgiving dinner is the same thing for many people. But what he's saying is that we're the wicked ones when we don't move, when we're not able to move and to challenge ourselves. Yes, Marcia.
Well, actually, what you just said ties into what I wanted to share. Although I would never have connected it to the wicked child per se, but that the even just the few images of the four children, can really generate such a fascinating social commentary, which is exactly what the Seder is supposed to be, a social commentary, which is why, I think about the Haggadah, A Different Night, where one of the things that the author puts in there are, I think, 12 or 15 different images of the four children, again, to sort of ignite a conversation, just like you're saying, to inspire this. And I love your interpretation and want to say thank you. And everybody can bring this to their Seder to say, how do we get stuck in the ritual and miss the whole point of actually putting ourselves in the drama today, whatever today is, whether it was 1958 or 1972 or today or going forward. And I just wanted to tell you how much I really appreciate that lens through which to approach this Seder and every Seder. Just wonderful, David. Thank you.
You're welcome, though. It gets better, though.
Okay. Okay, I'm ready.
Okay. So
Oh,
one
I have a
issue.
question. I have just a question.
Go ahead, sure.
I'm just wondering if, even with what's going on in our news today, that the representatives from different countries get stuck in how to have some form of peace. They discuss the same things over and over and over again, and for weeks nothing changes. They're stuck. And I see that as a problem with how do we get some peace in the Middle East?
Okay, so then I'm going to say something a little bit provocative, and it's not meant for you, directly, Rosalie. But in general, that would be my challenge to everybody. That has to do with how we view what's happening on the campus. It's how we view
Yes.
anti-Israel slogans, or what they are. Where people are, it has to do with what I had some conversations with my son-in-law who's with us, and my son-in-law is very different than I am politically. He's a lovely, lovely man and very, very loving to us, and of course to our daughter and our grandchildren. But I keep talking to him about apples and oranges. You say something and and there's these stock phrases that come back from the other side. And the stock phrases are on both sides, right? They're frozen, not just the leadership. It's the little people. It's the people that write me angry emails because I wrote a piece about reparations to the local, local group of African Americans that were forced off of their land in the 50s and 60s. And the way, why are you writing about that? You should be writing about what's happening in the war in Gaza. And I said, even if I did write about the war in Gaza, I'm not sure you would agree with it. So, it's the being stuck with every single thing. Every item is back to the Holocaust, every item. So, and just in the context of war and anti-Semitism, with everything, it's like that, though. We get
Right.
stuck. But let's take a look. Let's challenge ourselves when it comes to gender sensitivity. And here's a group. You are a group which is far more advanced in this than I am. But in the day when I began to deal with these things in the late 80s and early 90s at Machon Schechter, it was to me things that were obvious were not. But let's take a look at what are we looking at the picture here? Amsterdam, 1695. So somebody can cheat if they want. They can read the Hebrew caption.
Is this the three visitors to Abraham and Sarah? I can't see it very well.
Yes, yeah.
Yes,
V'yisa'inav, v'yar v'hinei shlosha anashim nitzavim alav, right? And here, behold, there were three men. Anashim. The Anashim here, of course, have very Christian-like angelic wings. And Abraham's bowing down. Where is Sarah in the picture?
Behind the meeting, the tent of meeting.
Right. Well, here it's not a tent. It's a house. Actually, you see
The
that?
house.
It looks like a house out of a little village in France, right? Or in Holland in the 17th century. But of course, she's behind the door. You know, a little bit of a challenge for him with the artwork here, the dimensions. But he's got her behind the door. And again, it shouldn't bother you that in the Torah it's about a tent. Here it's a door. The point is, in this picture, from my point of view, is that the angels are there. Abraham is with them, and she's behind the door. Right. On one hand. On the other hand, what else do you see in this picture? Oh, come now. It's out. What do you see on the right hand? What's the half
Is
of the
it
right hand?
water or is it land?
I think it's water.
It's water,
I think
Yeah.
it's,
and there's
think-
boats. There's even a sailboat in the background.
yep.
Wow.
And
And there's a
paddle
man and a
boat.
woman in the boat off to the right, in the foreground on the right.
And the paddle boat.
So I was, when I do this stuff, I look through different midrashim and verses and think what might connect for me. And I found this in Haggadah Breshit, which is a fascinating midrash. That would be fascinating just to teach that once, but not for today. It's anyway on the words in Mishlei, which are part of Eshet Chayil, for those that say that poem at the Friday night table, Haitaka Oniot Socher, that she was like a merchant fleet, the woman of valor. She's like a merchant fleet. What does that mean? That Sarah, this is Sarah, who crossed the river and came to the land of Canaan. Now,
Wow.
what
That makes sense. Look at that.
we don't think of that. We think of them schlepping. We think of her schlepping behind her husband Abraham, who heard the message. She didn't hear anything in the biblical text. We think of the dust and the dirt and the thirst and the cracked skin, and we don't think of crossing over in a boat. But what's up with the crossing over the boat? Anybody? Any guesses? Or perhaps you've heard me say it before?
Well, is it a reference to, like, I mean, is it Italy? Is there a, I mean, should we be thinking of Venice or something? I'd like that. I forgive my ignorance, but
No, it's not ignorance, and that's a good that the art hints towards Amsterdam. Even looks like
Amsterdam. It looks like Amsterdam to me.
Amsterdam.
Right, it looks like they're built on water, right, in the background there. That your instinct is right for that, but what how could this possibly connect to Abraham's story? And I'll tell you, because it might take a long time to get there. What is Abraham's eponym? Is that the right word? What's his I think it's an eponym. What is Abraham's eponym? Avram
Avinu,
No, Avram Avinu is one, Abraham our father, or Avram Ha-Ivri.
Ha-Ivri. Oh, the one who crossed
But
over.
the Hebrew crossed over.
Crossed over.
The
Of course.
Hebrew, the one who crossed over. That's my understanding of this. Interesting stuff, but it turns out that there are boats on water in many Haggadot. Now, does it come first from the 1695? It's hard to know, but let's take a look. What else is in? This is in the Basel Haggadah, and this has to do under the topic, my topic heading of gender sensitivity. You can see the middle that this is the page. These are the two panels at the top of the text. Text right now is not, we're going to look at that issue afterwards, what's juxtaposed. But what do you see on the right-hand side, anybody?
That's
There's
Passover seder, but the woman is behind the door.
Right,
But
but except for
that-
in this case, she's like next to the door. In the previous one, she's like behind it. So she's coming out a little bit. You also see these
Next to it.
men, they don't have wings. Like this is this is more modern, right? This is the 19th century. The Swiss Jews are now let's make it a little bit Hamish, right? And Abraham is serving the food, but she's there kind of checking, you know, the mother who's been cooking, just checking, looking out of the window. And how does this relate to the Seder, everybody?
Well,
Let all who come who have nowhere to go.
Okay, good. That's good.
right.
I'm
Also,
thinking of reality,
yeah, also, I mean, what is Abraham doing? He's serving them,
right?
which you expect the woman to do, really, and
Well, but in the biblical text, he's very strict. It's very careful to say that Avram was the one who was serving them.
right.
He told
But-
her she's got to get it ready. But this reminds me of I hope our seders are not like this, but the matron of the house who is cooking. Do you want to join us?
Right.
Okay. The matron of the house who is slaved away cooking for 7 days, costuring her kitchen, whatever, and then she's not at the seder actually because she's still futzing around in the kitchen. I mean,
Mhm.
we've seen those. Hopefully, we don't see that very much anymore. That people will come out and be with that. But that, to me, again, that's not necessarily what the illustrator wanted us to think of, but that's what I think of. But once we have Sarah and the angels there, that says to me, let's talk about gender issues and what's happening in the household and other places as well. But then we get something really, really weird. What's on the left-hand side, the left-hand panel?
You know, to me, this is something very interesting because in what in the Haggadah, traditionally, the men, the you know, the respected rabbis and men recline at a table, and the women don't, or a revered woman could. And there is a woman reclining at a table. I
I
think
mean,
it's
the left-hand side.
on the left-hand side.
Okay, so I guess I should have said something. I hear where you're going
I
with
don't
this,
see her.
but these are panels. The panels seem to all be pictures of biblical stories.
Yeah.
That in itself is a message because Haggadah, it means to tell this story. So yes, we're talking about the Exodus from Egypt, but it's storytelling, biblical storytelling. This is a picture of a biblical story.
Right. It was a little guy on the real left.
I'll give you a hint who it is. It's a woman.
Okay.
Woman.
On the it looks like on the edge of the water.
Or what's up here? What's up in the upper left-hand corner? What's happening?
That looks like a storm.
Or
They
the
look
burning
like-
bush.
Okay, I'm tormenting you, I think, and you'll never. These are two sisters. And what do they have in their hands?
Wine.
Goblet.
Goblets.
And this is their father. And this is their mother who is turned into a pillar of stone.
Oh,
Oh.
But so I was going to say that the large character behind the sister looks like he's in bondage, sitting on the floor.
Oh, I think this just is
On
a
the
dark,
left.
no, these are just this.
Yeah,
Oh,
well,
that.
No,
Yeah,
I
yeah,
think
yeah.
these are just rocks. I think these are rocks. The three faces we see here are the two sisters. And this is Lot, his two daughters. They are serving him wine because they think they're the last people. This is the artist's rendering of a cave, hence the darkness. And they're in a cave. They have left the destruction. Their mother has turned into salt. It took me a while to get through all this, but now that I'm telling you, I think you'll agree with me. There's plenty of wine to go around. They're getting him drunk
Or I'd like to see a
because
good
they're
sight on
convinced
these.
that they're the last people on earth and they have to bring children from him. That's a hell of a story to have in the Haggadah with the kids at the table. But it does afford me an opportunity to talk about, yeah, there's some pretty unhealthy stuff sometimes in families. I'm not saying necessarily incest, but there's misunderstanding, there's daddy issues, there's all sorts of things that one might think of from a gender sensitivity point of view. Another, from the same Haggadah from Basel, another picture, which is Also under the rubric of gender sensitivity, what are we looking at here?
A woman who's bending down to the king,
All right, I'll give you
begging him of something.
a king. What's happening
It's-
over here?
You know what?
Ay,
You guys, we just had the holiday. What do you think it is?
Purim,
Purim.
Right about what you're thinking? Is this a Purim story?
Oh, Purim story,
Amen.
maybe.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, because
Right,
there's
she-
the
Haman
scaffolding on the
hanging
other
from the-
side.
Right, she
Yep.
couldn't go before the king if you went, and only if he would extend his scepter to her, which in itself is a rather erotic kind of a gesture. Extend then she can be forced. So here she is on her knees. He's extending the scepter. In the meanwhile, they're preparing
Oh.
it's a bunch of things together.
So
It's a
Esther-
woman in a man's violent world. And it's something to think of. And of course, she's the one who's really the heroine of the story. Again, the issue of gender sensitivity in a picture and a Haggadah from 1816 Switzerland. And yet from the same Haggadah, another picture that I put under the rubric of gender sensitivity, although we'll see something that differs with this. What are we looking at here?
Well,
Oh, this is the story of Moses in the river.
Moshe
Yeah.
B'Teva, Moses and the Ark. This is Bat Paro, Batia or Bat Paro in the biblical story. Her maidens, the one who sticks out who she sends to stick out and save it. What do you have in the river here?
But
That pesky little boat with somebody kind of you find in lots of Haggadot, which I think is kind of it's a humoristic thing. It's a trademark of it's the Avram Ivri thing, I think. Anyway, all these things to talk about that. Yes, sometimes the women totally save the day, like in Esther in a man's world, or here, Bitya in a woman's world, right? And that's the start of Moses. I'm going from gender sensitivity. I'm going to speed it up a little bit because I just want to get more into how we can talk afterwards. Going from gender sensitivity to global warming. So in that same Haggadah, there's this cute little picture which shows us what?
frog plague.
Right, and this with you
Look at
plays
the frogs.
I'm going to ask on Cantor Marcia to share with us a quick song that she would sing to the children in the Gan Yeladim. How would it go, Marcia? Nothing? Maybe she's not with us.
Oh,
So
she
what's
may-
those frogs here, frogs there.
There. Frogs
There you
are everywhere.
Everywhere.
A little-
Frogs, yeah.
And then the little kids say, even in there's underwear. All right, so this idea of frogs all over the place, and this kind of humorous picture, and you can imagine that plagues are popular in Haggadot, and that's kind of the easy one to go to. And Rabbi Marcia mentioned beforehand the Tzion family's different Haggadot on a different night. There's one, then it was in Hebrew, and then the Hebrew one was translated to English. They did a lot of work over the years on pedagogical seders that you could do, and there's material there on the plagues as well.
Could that have been? Oh, God.
Something.
Could that have been an Iraqi kind of image? I'm looking at his head covering. The men's head covering looks.
I think it could be what somebody in Basel, Switzerland thought somebody in Egypt would be wearing.
Okay.
That's
I
what
think- yeah.
Okay, sorry. Somebody put something in the chat.
Rabbi Moore.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right. So, so we have this tradition from Shmot Rabbah, and Susan Glass, would you like to read?
Sure. And the frog or frogs ascended and covered the land of Egypt.
That's in the biblical text, right? And the same word Sfardea is both singular and plural.
It has been taught that Rabbi Akiva said there was only one frog who in turn laid eggs and gave birth in such a way that all the land of Egypt was filled by her offspring.
Okay, so Rabbi Akiva, he understands the word Sfardea as a singular Sfardea, one, but because it's a word that can also be plural, well, it's one that gave eggs, so that the whole place is one one frog, one female frog was responsible for the infestation of frogs all over Egypt. And Rabbi Akiva, who is well known in issues of halacha, of Jewish law, he is reprimanded by his colleague, Rabbi Lazar ben Azariah. Go ahead.
Akiva, what do you know about legends? Stop talking about this on concentrate, or maybe and
It should be
concentrate
and. It's a typo.
Talking
And.
about this on, oh,
It should be and. Go ahead and concentrate.
of ritual purity. There was indeed only one frog, but she whistled to the rest of them and they came.
Right. Now, it's hard to know, is he being serious, Elazar, or is he trying to outdo him in the joking part of it? My guess is they both had a little bit of wine at the seder, and that's how they're entertaining their guests. That would be it. But what is the story here? What happened? So somebody's always going to ask, like the children would say, Abba ze be'emet, right? Did it really happen that way? No, it's a fairy tale, right? So then years ago, the last few years, now we have this issue. There's a story that somebody has quoted. Is it real? Is it fake? Where do you get your news? How do you discern what is supposed to be ironic or comical or whatever it might be, and what is supposed to be reality? And then we go from there to, let's remember that it wasn't just suffering, it wasn't just plagues for the Egyptians. Our ancestors, the Israelites, the Hebrews, were made to work very hard. There's just a great difference from the Trieste Haggadah. Sometimes the pictures exactly match the text as it is here, and sometimes otherwise. But here you've got this vision here. And what's happening today? California just moved up, find the minimum wage. That was a big thing when I first got here. Remember speaking out publicly with other clergy in the city about the minimum wage. And it was set in Palm Springs higher than it was in California at a quicker, and I remember going to city council to speak about it. But of course, there's the backlash to that, at least, which we are told, we don't know if it's real or not, but that people are firing, they're firing staff because they can't afford to pay so much, et cetera, et cetera. So the idea of wage and employment justice it should be in our minds, I think. Here is a picture from the Trieste Haggadah. The caption reads that Pharaoh making the Hebrews fabricate or to build two cities, Pitom Ramses. So I love the detail of this. It's just so, again, I can imagine a little child looking at this and tracing their fingers on the different details and trying to understand. So what did it mean for slaves to build a city without it being too violent? I think we're going to skip this. On the other hand, this is from Amsterdam, 1695. This is a violent scene, right? This is abuse at the workplace. And again, to raise this as an issue of, it's not always so blatant. Abuse at the workplace can be verbal abuse, can be emotional abuse. But this is, we ever thought of a taskmaster tormenting one of the Israelites, or perhaps this is the one who was beating right before Moses comes and beats him to death? Hard to know. But it's almost kind of a Dante-like hell scene, right? We're back to that same scene on the left-hand side. It's Pharaoh's daughter with her crown here, Bitya, and she's saving the Moses in the Teva. It looks like that might be Miriam over there, but what's going on in the water? What else is going on in this picture?
yeah, well,
There's other babies. Yeah.
babies.
Right. And this was when I first did this presentation a few years ago, that was the last time I did it. When I created the original presentation, it was exactly when with the border and the children that had drowned in the Rio Grande or whatever the river was, and should know. But this is not so pleasant, right? This is children, this is to think about that there's children involved. Hayes has done a lot of supplements over the years for Haggadot, Shel Pesach, to bring our awareness to these kinds of things, but something to think about as well. Let me do a little bit more and then I'll stop for questions. Another thing that was in the news at the time and still is as a campaign message is building a border wall or unbuilding a border wall. Was inspired because one of the panels in the Haggadah has something nothing to do directly with Pesach, but indirectly. Joshua at the Battle of Jericho, where of course the walls came tumbling down. Oh, the issue of sending away a stranger, the highest as well, the things that Heiser tells us. This is an interesting picture, the way the caption is versed. Abraham is blessing his son Isaac while at the same time sending away Hagar and Ishmael. Okay, let me pause. There's been there'll be things that are having to do with borders, strangers, things like that. You know, once we were strangers in the land of Egypt, different illustrations that I found in the different 4 Haggadot that have inspired me to talk about these issues. Let's take a break for questions. I know that I think Sylvia, you had your hand up beforehand, and Marcia.
It was a specific question about that last image that we saw with the babies in the water, and then there was a woman on the other side. Yeah, right on the other side there's a woman there with I think it's a woman with a raised hand and 2 right. Yeah, that's it, and 2 right next to it. Is that Moshe's mother, or is that or are they other women who have had to?
My guess is it would be other women who are watching their children die.
Okay.
Good point. Marcia?
I think she had her hand raised
All right.
from before, and she said,
Yeah,
Okay.
I think I never took my hand down. I'm sorry
Okay.
about that.
I'm sorry, your hand must be tired. Okay. All right. And then somebody mentioned this before, this kind of basic thing of eating, you know, this is from the same Trieste Haggadah, a scene of a family that are sitting reciting the formula or the Haggadah, the Nusach of the Haggadah Shel Pesach, of the narrative. And so, you know, everybody's sitting around. Looks like the little kid over here, they all got these wonderful hats on, and the women are sitting at the table as well, and the wine is flowing. You get that feeling, except for what's happening over here.
Stranger at the door.
Is that Elijah?
Now,
That's Elijah.
first of all, there's a
I think.
woman answering the door, and she's behind the door. That same motif creeps in. Right, the same motif of Sarah is creeping in here. I put the caption Kol dichvin yeteve echol, Kol ditzich yeteve yitzach. Everybody who's hungry should come and eat. Everybody who's in need should come and be part of the Passover. But what is the guy dressed up as? So do you imagine Elijah looking like this, Marcia?
No.
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 So
I
what does
just
it look like?
A nobleman.
I mean, it looks. I'm not sure.
I'm thinking it looks like a Roman military kind
Yeah, I think
because of that
The
helmet.
helmet.
the helmet, the giveaway. I think this is a soldier.
So
And
Oh.
then there's an interesting thing. Is it that they're waiting? Is it like my caption here? Oh, you've come to the door. Come and join us. Are you hungry? Or is it? We're in deep shit now. We're getting in trouble with the non-Jewish, with the Gentiles who have forbid us to do this. That kind of motif. You know?
that's kind of what I'm thinking, because I'm looking at the woman behind the door.
Yeah,
And
here.
it's hard to see, but it looks to me like she not happy. You know,
She's
not
frightened.
I agree with you.
I think what I want to say here, from my point of view, subjective point of view, it's ambivalent. I want it to be ambivalent. I want us to know that sometimes somebody is knocking on our door because they're a threat. That's true. But sometimes we perceive a threat when we should be open to welcome into our table. Again, I'm not putting myself into places of danger. I'm taking it as an issue that sometimes the tendency, and this has to do with campuses, and this has to do with Israel, this has to do with last night we were sitting with the grandchildren in Palm Springs getting ice cream, and a group of evangelicals from Texas, some had guitars, came, they heard us speaking Hebrew and started saying how much they love Israel, da, da, da. And they said, can they give us a blessing? And of course I said, yes. And then it was a song and I sang along with them because it's easy music. It's the Christian rock music. And it was Yevarechecha in English for them. And then he wanted us to say a prayer with him. I said, you say, we'll say Amen, which of course was the Jesus Christ. And then one way to do it would have been said, just get the hell out of here. We're proud Jews. We don't have anything to do with it. In my way, and Sasha felt the same way. And my son-in-law, let's get a blessing wherever you can get a blessing. They can't hurt. That's kind of a thing. So this picture brings me into my reality of last night. Talking about feeding the hungry. So you may see here, this is Dayenu. Dayenu, right? In the way it said it. What are the two pictures at top? But I'm not going to make you straight. I'm going to already bring them on there. This is Basel 1816. This is at the top. These are these two panels. Okay, let's take it from right first. What are we looking at on the right?
Oh,
They're playing marbles.
a gambler, dice or whatever it is, the gambler. And there's somebody, the one on the left, I don't know if she's or he is looking away because they don't like it, or maybe they're just losing money. Who knows?
Okay, well, you don't get stuck on the gambling too much. How about the cloud? What does the cloud
Really,
signify?
one left looks like she's holding the arm of the second one, the muscular one. But yeah.
The clouds. You want to know what the clouds mean?
Yeah, so I'm going to tell you, this is the man. This is the manna.
Ah.
Oh,
And they're
Ah.
gathering the manna. The cloud comes down, and that's kind of how the illustrator wants us to understand, it was a divine kind of an act. This is manna, and they're collecting manna. It's not clear if he's pushing her away or if she's dependent upon him, that she's so hungry that she's leaning on
she's
him.
weak.
I would go for that one, but this is above Dayenu, right? All the good things that happen. So if that is the bread, that's the manna, what's happening over here?
The water.
All right,
Oh,
let's
wine.
look
And
at this guy here. What's in his hand?
the rod that he used to, or
Right?
staff that he
Moses
used
and
to
Aaron,
hit
they
them,
were told to talk to the rock, and said they beat it, they hit it.
and they got
Water
water.
comes out, and the people of Israel, which have these beautiful, pottery kind of things, right? And of course, like much of European art, there's a dog who's thrown into it as well, right? So there's a playfulness to it, but this is the artwork which is above, which is above Dayenu. So this is a case where there's a direct relationship, to my mind, the illustration to what we have enough, feeding the hungry, it's having enough. We have enough food, we have enough water, let's be content with what we have. And then going on in the Haggadah, there's the section about Rabbi Gamliel, who said that whoever has not said these three things over the Passover holiday has not fulfilled one's obligation. And those three things are Pesach, Matzah, and Maror. And we lift them up, not the Pesach, we lift up the Matzah and Maror. So those of you that were with us last Monday, we actually saw this illustration from the Basel Haggadah of 1816, the one on the left, which seems to be a seder table, right? So some people, pointed out that this looks like a seder plate. People around, we'll get to that in a second. But any ideas? There's no way people will think what's happening on the right, though. Probably. Any ideas?
It looks like it was king. So, and the first thing that came to my mind, which is obviously not right, was David out on his parapets looking down.
Looking at Bathsheba.
That's when he found yeah, that's
Right.
exactly.
So, but you're on the right track. It's not David.
It looks like a
It's
woman.
always going to be Solomon.
It's
It looks
Solomon.
like a woman.
Someone looking at the temple.
Right, that
Now,
makes
the connection between the Seder and the temple that are inside of this quote from Rabban Gamliel. The Seder of Solomon and the Solomon and the temple, and then the Seder around the house. Now, of course, as I showed you, if you were here last week, you saw this already. This picture of the seder is a ripoff from this particular version of the Last Supper. The telltale signs are the pitcher here of water,
Letter.
plate here, the window behind, right? So it's a mirror image, but it's been ripped off. That's less interesting now that we've seen it. But the idea that there
Oh,
is
it's cool.
a lot to be seen, a lot of interesting parallels. Which brings me to the topic of interfaith dialogue, which I think is a social justice issue. It's not just something fun. It's not just something to solve, as an intellectual thing. And that's my challenge has been finding people with whom to share what I'm doing from an interfaith point of view, who don't relegate it. I went to a conference, Marcia, that conference that you helped me get to in Chicago, and I found people. They said, "Oh, you mean spiritual, whatever." There's some modality that's done in universities. Oh, you mean that? I said, no, I mean, that's just Jews and Christians studying together for mutual understanding. Anyway, I bring this particular shot from Trieste Haggadah, which I've already said has some rather strange pictures. This is, of course, what are we looking at? It says underneath.
Sacrifice of Isaac.
Right. But what's unique about this picture from a Jewish point of view? He's kneeling.
He's kneeling, he's not,
He's kneeling in a very Christian
right,
Yeah.
format.
right.
And if
And
you look
this
at the
person is, it looks like a genie coming out of a
right,
pot.
and very, very, very person-like.
With wings.
Yeah, wings in the face. Okay. Oops. How do I?
Angel.
But now we go to a different take on interfaith dialogue. If you can't read, well, the verse below says, and Joshua said to the people of Israel, Ko Amar Adonai Elohei Yisrael. This is what God, Adonai, the God of Israel, says. On the other side of the river came your father Abraham, and left with his father Nahor. So this is the verse mentions Abraham and Nahor, his father. Is that a hint for anybody? On one hand, you think it's very violent. What are we looking at here?
He's smashing the idols.
Yep. Isn't that
Oh, look
great?
at that. Very
That's
cool.
that's Abraham and his idol smashing store, and there's bits and pieces of idols around it. And there's a river there, and he's coming across the river, and there's bridges, and there's distant lands, and there's going to be an altar with sacrifices. I mean, this is really, really interesting art work.
Wow.
And I'm almost sure that the entire dissertations were done in Amsterdam 1695. Okay, I know we're behind, we're on the time, but I'm going to go on because I don't think we'll have a chance to do this again, but I'm going to go on for those that still have the time, and I've got a little bit more time. Okay, coming along with in my own personal story here, my interfaith dialogue is bound together with interaction with politicians, because we're a group, we're stronger together when we go and speak at a city council meeting or pen an opinion piece. What are we looking at?
Oh, it almost looks like Daniel in Daniel in the Lion's Den, only
Why do you
updated.
say almost?
Well, because of the Daniel doesn't look like Daniel to me, but yes,
it's
that
Looks
there's
like Ben
lions.
Franklin.
Yeah, this looks more like Elton John. I understand.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
So there's lions. You can see the king is up here looking
That's
down.
right. Yeah.
So if that is Daniel in the lion's den, what is this picture on the right of the panel? Same page, by the way. I cut and pasted. This is the telltale. What's going on up here?
That's God's hand coming out from the rays.
Oh, I see that. Yeah, on the left.
And writing on the wall. Yeah, some of you were with us. That was a long time ago when we did this, when we did Daniel.
was.
Some of you will
It was
remember.
cool though.
Yeah.
What does the writing say?
Oh, tekel, whatever.
Oh,
Anybody
oh.
remember?
It's funny, the lions, I guess the artistry is, ancient. Wait a second, it's 1800s, not so ancient.
Yeah.
The lions are humanized almost, their faces.
Yeah. So hold that thought. Hold that thought, because we're going to get to that in the last thing, almost the last thing we do. Brings me to the issue of civil discourse. In this country, this is what, to my mind, this is what civil discourse looks like today in the United States. I'm saying with a smile, of course. But it's one side wins all. The rest side let them drown in the ocean. Of course, this is, you can imagine though, for those that feel, post October 7th, and what's happened since in many circles, Jewish circles in Israel, out of Israel, this feels like we're on the left and they're on the right.
Mhm.
Or are we? Oh, not wrong conversation.
And yet we all know this tradition from the Talmud. I think it's simply Rabbi Yochanan said, what is the meaning of that which is written? And the one came not near the other all night. The ministry angels wanted to sing their song, for the angels would sing songs to each other, as it states, and they called out to each other and said, V'kar zel zevi amar, like Kadosh, Kadosh, Kadosh in Isaiah. But the Holy One, the praised Holy One said, the work of my hands, the Egyptians are drowning in the sea, and you wish to sing songs? This indicates that God does not rejoice over the downfall of the wicked. Now, I know that many of you will relate that to the pouring out of wine from the cup, as many do. That's actually a new custom, or a new meaning for the custom, I should say, mostly 20th century. It's a good custom. It's also the reason that we do say full Hallel. But now we're in the Basel Haggadah. What are we looking at? Anybody?
That's no, I think it's is still the drowning of the Egyptians
Exactly.
and Moses.
Different rendition. Here, the emphasis seems to be on the horses that are right. So Moses is here with his horns, because it's from that art tradition. Aaron at his side, his staff. Pharaoh maybe looks a little bit like a zombie king. We're back to civil discourse. So many of you know that custom. It's a medieval custom. It's one of the latest additions to the Haggadah. Shvoch hamatcha goyim, pour out your wrath upon the nations. It's a get you back kind of thing. But this is really interesting. What is this? What is the picture in the Haggadah? The picture on the left of Trieste on the right hand side. This is the picture down here. What are we looking at? This is the picture for pour out your wrath on the goyim, on the Gentiles. Go to the key figure first. Who's this?
Moses.
With his
Moses.
staff.
Right.
What's happening right above the border of the picture? He's hitting the rock and the water's coming down. And they're
Right.
drinking water. See, everybody's drinking water. And they're feeding water to the others, and they're all happy. What's this? How is this connected to pour your wrath out on your anger on the goyim?
Well, what about the people in the background that are not looking so happy?
Or maybe
And they
they're
have their
just in
arms
wonder.
out, trying to, asking for water, but they don't seem to be getting any.
And so do you think there would be a picture where the Israelites would get water, but the other, okay. How about something like, what is the verb that's used with anger in this section of the Haggadah? With wrath? Pour out your wrath. What else do we pour?
Wine.
Water.
Wine.
Water is poured out. No, the water. This is a sense of humor. You want a picture about pouring? I'll give you a picture. It's pouring of water. It's a blessing. Turns the curse into a blessing. That's what I see here.
Cool.
A much more orderly sense of civil discourse from the Offenbach Haggadah. Even though they're in the ocean, they're drowning, still, that doesn't look like they're suffering. It just looks like they're wading through the water. Maybe that has to do with the political
Just like
stance.
I'm thinking of the song Just Like an Egyptian.
Yeah,
They've
right there.
got their Steve Martin hands up in the air.
Okay, and having to do with reconciliation. This is Lavan, and Jacob at Har Gilad. Jacob, Lavan, and they're talking about it. They're working it out. Would you like to read this, Rosalie?
Sure. Elijah will not come to pronounce unclean or to pronounce clean, to put away or to bring near, but to put away those brought near by force and to bring near those put away by force. Rabbi Judah says to bring near, but not to put away. Rabbi Shimon says to conciliate disputes. And the sages say neither to put away nor to bring near, but to make peace in the world. For it is said, behold, I send to you Elijah the prophet, etc. And he shall turn the hearts of the fathers to the children and the heart of the children to their fathers.
And I
From
like the
Malachi.
illustration from Offenbach here. It's kind of, that's his way in this form of, I don't know if this is Art Deco or what this would be called, but you know, with the way the different interactions between people talking, looking at them each, you know, apologies, reconciliation. And this idea of allowing for tshuva, this is something that bothers me. There's a book that Danya Rotenberg, I think that's her last name, wrote about tshuva. I find it a very disturbing book because it doesn't really allow for tshuva to happen. It allows for revenge of the person who has been hurt and a sense of justice. It doesn't speak at all, besides the fact that it's written very poorly. I say this because this particular rabbi is doing a lot of damage to some of my teachers right now, some of my friends and teachers, and this not allowing somebody to do tshuva, keeping the grudge. And I bring that here because the picture here is of David and Natan. It's Natan reprimanding David for sleeping with a married woman, and the child that died that issued from that union. And what Rish Lakish himself said, great is repentance, as one's intentional sins are counted for him as merits, as it is stated. And when the wicked turns from his wickedness and does that which is lawful and right, he shall live thereby. And all his deeds, even his transgressions, will become praiseworthy. I don't think there should be a question mark there. In any case, I think we can be far more generous when it comes to doing tshuva. That's my thing. When it comes to social justice work and not taking a position and getting stuck in that position. Now we're finishing up with the theological aspects. This is from that same cover of Basel. This is one that I want to just dwell in a second. I think, was it Sandra? Was it you who talked about the art of the lion?
No, I did, Rosalie, with the
Rosalie, but
faces.
I agree with her.
Rosalie. So this is Moses at the burning bush. His sheep are here. His staff is on the ground. He's kneeling. What are you looking at over here on the right-hand side?
Oh. So,
Image of God.
Could be the image of God, which
Could be. Yeah, like what else could it be?
yeah, but it's so fascinating that it would be put there because of, our
Because of
prohibition.
because of everything you've been told until now, right?
Right. Don't do that.
That's the wonderful thing about exploring Bill's collection. I've gone through thousands and thousands of images, not just his, he has a category, catalog of sorts. I did my own. There's just some really super surprising things, and this is really interesting. Now, does this mean that the illustrator had to be non-Jewish because a Jew would not do this? Or does it mean, as you mentioned before, Sylvia, that this is part of that Italian intelligentsia or Haskalah that had no problem doing this? But when I look at that image, this is what I'm reminded of.
Ah.
Flag on a mass away. What makes the old charges dust in the misty mist or the dusty dust? The muskrat guard his moss.
So it's the willing suspension of disbelief.
Almost done. I'm sorry, I can't resist it. This face, this punim of God looks just like the lion from the Wizard of
Bert Laura lives, yay.
So my lesson in this last bit here is to add humor, add even if you use electricity, add a clip from something, get the kids involved, get the everybody involved, but yeah, we do see things, surprising things, and there's when we do talk about the God aspect, remember Moses is not mentioned, but God is mentioned in Haggadah. Is for us to talk about God, the thing that liberal Judaism didn't really talk about so much in much of the 20th century. At least not on the kids level, but what are the different ways to experience God? A theology of openness, a God of humbling, a God of vengeance, the plague of the firstborn, which goes along with this very difficult tradition. All the firstborn came together, their fathers, and said, "Whatever Moses has said, he has brought upon us. Do you not wish us to live? Rather come and let us give these Hebrews, let them go away from amongst us. For if we do not, we're dead." And their fathers answered them and said, "Over our dead bodies, even if all of us Egyptians die, they will not go away from you." This vengeance, that blinding vengeance that just brings about worse. Also, the God of big stories, God of history. Maybe one of the messages of this song, Haggadah. The God of constant being in motion, which this is a picture from Amsterdam 1695, but it's about Har Sinai. You can see Anochi Adonai Elohecha. But look how much is going on. This is not a God who's distant, this is a God who's really there. And finally, a different issue. This is not about God, this is about reparations. And this is connected to the work I'm doing here with some of my other clergy people in Palm Springs. Some of you have been involved in perhaps in other areas. And this, unfortunately, is not from the Gross Family Collection. This is from the British Library. But it's a famous picture because it's been used. This is the Israelites who were commanded by Moses, who was commanded by God, to take the vessels, to borrow vessels from their neighbors before they left from Egypt, which was in sense that was a form of reparations. Something else to think about. And the final issue has to do with wishful thinking and reality. We always say L'Shana Haba B'Yerushalayim. Some people say L'Shana Haba B'Yerushalayim HaBnuya, in the rebuilt Jerusalem. We've said for many years B'Yerushalayim HaShleva, in the peaceful Jerusalem. I'm not even sure we can say it tonight. It's just, again, being stuck in these ideas of this is what the land of Israel is about. This is the report of the good spies. But there's also political realism in the Trieste Haggadah. What I'm talking about, political realism, this is modern Jerusalem. That's the caption here. We're standing here on Mount Olives, looking to the Temple Mount, and what's right here where the temple would have been?
Dome of the Rock.
The Dome of the Rock, exactly. And to have that in the Haggadah this is the Churva synagogue, by the way. To have that in the Haggadah and all these various steeples, that's a church steeple, the others are minarets, is a political reality. Yes, we think of Jerusalem, but no, again, I'm reading into it, but you should know there's a mosque on the top of it, right? It's not so simple, building the temple, rebuilding the temple. Or the Haggadah of Amsterdam, 1695, is famous because it is one, if not the first, one of the first maps with Hebrew markings. This is a map of the land of Israel. Looking at the top is east. So you can see Eretz Plishtim, the land of the Philistines, Shevet Shimon, the Shimons, Dan, Yehuda, Yam HaMelach, the Dead Sea, Yam Kinneret, Jerusalem up here, and so on, looking at the division of Eretz Yisrael according to the tribes. A very political thing, very kind of, almost playful when we look at it now, but for many people politically, and they're in the government in Israel right now, this is something that they hope will be a reality. And then finally from Offenbach, there's this, sorry, I'm almost later. Hi, I'm just finishing teaching. Give me 2 minutes. This is it's a map of the wanderings of the Israelites in the desert. That's one thing. And then, and which is kind of a modern thing to have maps of that. And then this breakdown into the different tribes of Eretz Israel. I want to thank the Gross Family Collection in Tel Aviv, the Gross family, for using their collection, Madalina, and to Rabbi Marsha for giving me this opportunity to share with you things that I'm very passionate about, which I hope you felt.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. I'm sorry. I just wanted to say it was thrilling. I learned so much
Me
today
too.
and was
Yeah.
very inspired. David, I hope you'll always do a pre-Passover thought session for all of us to get us really ready for our seders in the right mindset and openness. And you are such a gift to our group, our committed group of learners, and we're so grateful for you.
Well, thank you, everybody. Chag Sameach. May it be a meaningful one and a joyful one as much as possible.
It's really good.
Thanks,
Thank
Samaya.
you so much.
So much.